Baylor's Dave Aranda and Kansas State's Chris Klieman both answered questions on Monday about the matchup between their two teams in Waco on Saturday. Let's dive into what exactly they said about injuries, the Baylor offense versus the K-State defense, the Wildcats offense versus the Bears defense, and more. First up, some general notes from Klieman on what his team showed last week against UCF.
We did some things a lot better. We've got to clean up an awful lot of things on both sides of the ball and on special teams. I think part of our effort and physicality kind of bailed us out a few times, but we've got to be better. We're giving up too many explosive plays on defense, not getting as many right now on offense. We were good in the red zone on offense, and we won the turnover margin, and that was huge for us to get 3 big turnovers. And we didn't finish plays. And I think that's the biggest thing is we got a guy in position to make a tackle on the long run, and we missed the tackle. And when you're playing really good offenses that know exactly where they're pushing the ball, crack people, all the stuff, and we don't make the tackle, big plays happen. And that was frustrating. Something we got to get cleaned up. You're going to give offenses are too good. You're going to have 15-yard gains. You're even going to give up a 20-yard gain. We cannot give up the big plays that we have, and a lot of it is technique errors or communication.
On the Baylor side of things, team leader and starting wide receiver Josh Cameron made it clear that the Bears know the challenge that the Wildcats' hardworking identity poses.
Yeah, no, this game is really important, kind of like every other game. Once you enter into Big 12, really territory and games, like the kind of intensity just takes like even higher steps. So really coming off OK State, taking that momentum into this next game is going to be huge because really just having the history of like K-State as a program. They're a super tough team, super well coached, super disciplined. Really just like their whole team is all about toughness, physicality. So really trying to match that and then go beyond that would be the main thing. So really taking all that into account and just getting out there with a dub. Really just even going back to just 2021, 2022, all the other years we played them, they've always been a physical team. That's really that's their main goal, is to just try and out physical you, wear you down, just really make you mess up, if anything. So the main thing is just bring it right back to them, just stay on top of our details and execute at a high level.
We will get back to the execution bit for both teams later on when we look at the stats. But for now, let's look at the personnel available to execute or not, aka injury updates. K-State has a pair of receivers that are dealing with some health concerns. Star wide receiver number 1, Jace Brown, as well as number 5, Jurand Bradley.
Yeah, we won't really know probably until middle of the week when we practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. But I'm hopeful for all of them. They're not out long term, and so can we do enough things with treatments and stuff to get them ready to play? I know that the guys that are banged up are going to work their tails off to get healthy, and we'll find out where we're at Tuesday and Wednesday.
So look out for that first Big 12 injury report tonight. Now, on to the Bears. Star running back Bryson Washington was in and out of the locker room during the second half of their game against Oklahoma State in Stillwater with some kind of issue, but he refused to quit.
Bryson was with us today going through all the things, and so, I was with him during stretch, and he goes, "Coach, they can't get me. I go, "Man, they're trying. They're trying." And so his style of running is so violent that he invites just the contacts. And there's one in the middle of the field. There's one on their sideline that was pretty violent, and he bounced right back. He got back in it, and so I think everyone sees that. Everyone draws strength from that because he is he's kind of our bell cow when he's out there doing those things. And then Carl was going through all the things too. I talked to him as well. He's trying to battle. It doesn't feel like it used to feel all the time, and so it feels a little bit different. He can still do the things. He's trying to get used to how it feels different now, and so we'll see.
That update on defensive back Carl Williams doesn't sound great to me, but if he can come back and produce on the field, that's a good thing for the Bears. The Baylor offensive line has also been dealing with some nagging injuries, as Aranda gave an update on guard Omar Ibedion.
Omar's he's fighting through it right now. I don't know if we're going to have Omar. We'll see. I think he's kind of tightened up right now, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay, With the minimal health information out of the way, let's get to the fun stuff. What does Klieman see from the Baylor offense?
Yeah, tempo, speed, terrific quarterback. That's been what we've been working on since about 1 o'clock after we went through the game on Sunday. They're a terrific offense. They're clicking on all cylinders. They've had really good success. They're putting up, 500 yards or so and tons of points. And it's not one person. I know the quarterback makes them go, but it's a variety of guys at wide receiver that are making plays for them. A terrific tight end, one of the best in the league. Really good running backs, and they're playing well up front. And so our big thing is if they're going to have 90 plays, we're going to be in a problem. And we've got to find ways to get off the field on defense and try to sustain some drives on offense so that we can play a little complementary football, because we don't want to get into in the 40s shootout with them, and you're not going to have a 10-6 game against these guys.
That's a lot of praise. And while the compliments of Sawyer Robertson, Michael Trigg, and the receivers will ring true to Baylor fans, the praise for the Bears' offensive line will probably sound more like coach speak. Penalties and lack of push have plagued the Baylor rushing attack so far this year. Here's what Aranda said about the O-line penalties at just Oklahoma State.
Yeah, the majority of the penalties are at the end of the game. And so it's one of those things where, man, it's hot, you're tired, it's sore. It doesn't matter, And so that's something I think we're still trying to wrap our minds around.
Moreover, there is what Aranda calls an identity piece to the rushing attack that has not quite been there for Baylor this year. The ability to finish.
Very much so. I think that's been missing. That's been missing up until really, you could probably say these last 2 games, but particularly this last one. I think there's an identity piece. When you don't have that, then I think there's kind of a hole in the middle of what is your identity. But when you have that, and the guys are, we've got receivers that are taking DBs and putting them into the ground on the sideline. And when you have all of that, right, the identity jumps off the screen. So it's good to have.
One thing that could help the rushing attack take a step forward and help keep Bryson Washington healthy would be the emergence of young backs Caden Knighton and Michael Turner. Knighton has been the primary backup so far this season, but has a tendency to spill runs outside, which is much more boom or bust. Michael Turner showed promise to be more like Washington or Dawson Pendergrass in Stillwater last week, though.
Yeah, there's positive stuff in there. There's times when Michael looks like B. Wash in a couple of the runs, the physicality and the downhill piece of it. Caden did better with hitting stuff downhill. I think he has an instinct to run sideways and to bounce stuff out. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's not so good. And so I think he did better with that. I think we can there's still a bunch of room for improvement there. But, I'm really proud of the offensive line. I thought they battled through. There was, at the end of the game and the closeout piece of it, they're just literally putting their bodies on people. And it's just kind of smashing faces. And they were able to move piles doing it that way. They had nothing left, But it was really cool to see. We've been trying to get that, and we got it. And now that we got it, we got to keep it.
Looking back to the passing game and the K-State defense, the Wildcats recently switched their boundary and field safeties around to try and put their guys in better positions to make plays. But will the change help enough?
Yeah, we're going to find out. This week's going to be critical. I think people saw we made a flip with VJ and Wesley. We switched their positions in the bye week. Just wanted to get VJ more in the middle of the field and utilize his skill set there. Move Wesley into the boundary. That's a small fix, but it was something that takes some time. So I'm hoping that both those guys are going to feel more and more comfortable. Gunnar Maldonado finally healthy. His first time he was able to play without a knee brace on, and you could tell how much faster and quicker he was. Logan Bartley's getting an opportunity to play. We're playing a ton of corners out there. Zayshawn's a tremendous player that's gaining more and more confidence. And then we're playing 3 other guys at the other corner spot, and they're all going to have to play. And we're playing 2 stars or nickels.
So there is depth that the Wildcats are counting on using, but its quality will be tested by one of the best aerial attacks in the nation on Saturday. With that, let's take a look at some stats. The Baylor passing attack is elite, with the 3rd most passing yards per game in the nation, with 349.4 yards per game. The offense as a whole sits 11th in yards per game with 504. Sawyer Robertson, for his part, has the most passing yards in the FBS with 1,713, while running back Bryson Washington sits 10th nationally in running yards with 492. The Bears' problem has been converting yards into points, and more specifically touchdowns. So it's not so much K-State's 116th ranked rushing defense, or their 37th ranked passing defense that should be looked at, but their 77th ranked scoring defense, giving up just over 25 points per game, and their 73rd ranked red zone defense, allowing scores on 84.2% of red zone possessions, as well as a TD on 10 out of 19 such possessions. Baylor is just 67th nationally in offensive red zone percentage at 87%, scoring a touchdown on 16 out of 23 possessions. As for some key defensive notes and stats, let's let Coach Klieman tee me up.
They're a veteran group for starters, a lot of guys that have played a ton of snaps, whether it's at Baylor or another place, but they fly around. I think they're doing some really good things on defense. They pressure really well, but I think they tackle exceptionally well. They're probably going to be the same way with us. They're going to have to play a lot of guys with it being a warm day. I think they're really active, and I know Dave's extremely involved at the defense, and when he's involved, they're going to be really good.
I think they tackle exceptionally well. While to some it may feel like Baylor's had a rough year in that category, the Bears have a season-long Pro Football Focus tackling grade of 73.3, good for 41st nationally. That is the 6th best rank in the Big 12. Now, Kansas State is worse with a 69.5 grade, good for 59th nationally and 10th in the Big 12, respectively. You can pause and take a closer look at game-by-game defensive grades below, but maybe this is just a matter of perspective for Klieman. Okay, now, what kind of challenge is Aranda expecting from Avery Johnson and the KSU offense?
They ran the quarterback. I think it was intentional. I think there's probably some intentional play prior to that of trying to keep the quarterback out of the fray and be a passer. And I think there was, hey, we've got this guy, he's really fast, we're going to run him. So that showed up quite a bit in this last game. You know, they have another quarterback that they put in there. They had two quarterbacks at the same time. And it was kind of a bone, three guys in the backfield, two quarterbacks or two of the three. And they're running kind of wildcat plays. And I think that gave them a spark. I think they were looking for a spark, and they were able to get it in the run game. I think their running back's back, and obviously he can create sparks all over the place. And so, I think their ability to kind of collect, pressures and stunts and with their O-line and kind of get a surge going, and then they've got guys, if there's a seam, can take it. And so they're trying to get the receivers healthy, and so we'll see what ends up happening that way, but the run game certainly got going.
Let's hear what Coach Klieman had to say about that other quarterback package.
It was a bye week. I think we improved in the bye week for sure in a lot of different areas. It was just a way for us to try to evaluate Blake a little bit too. Blake's a really good athlete, and we're like, hey, let's, we didn't know through the bye week if we were going to have Dylan back, okay? And so we needed to have another guy that could run the football. And so I don't know how much we'll expand on it. I haven't been with the offense. I've been mostly with the defense today. So, but it was something that gave us a little bit of a spark, and we ended up having Dylan. But since they put it in the bye week when we didn't have Dylan, we're like, hey, let's use it and see how it works. But I think it helped Blake. It's no different than Sterling or any of those other guys we're talking about. Man, you get into a game and you have some success, it's going to give you some confidence. Blake's a really good thrower too. I mean, this isn't wildcat, and that's the thing that we need to see Blake in a real game, play quarterback by himself. Right now that hasn't had to happen because Avery's been healthy, but hopefully that can help that kid gain some confidence. But I know defensively, everybody has their wildcat package. Everybody has their empty package. Everybody has their unbalanced package. People have more wildcat than they do two quarterback packages on defense. I mean, Dave will have the same stuff. He'll have all the answers for it. But we just needed a spark. And we knew that UCF wasn't going to practice that. So we just needed a spark. Once again, I don't know where it'll go, if it'll even continue, but we just needed a spark, especially not knowing if we'd have Dylan.
So all of that for a set we might not even see on the field in Waco? At least I'm leaving y'all prepared, right? Anyway, let's hear more from Aranda on the identity and specifics of how KSU likes to attack a defense.
Yeah, their identity is pretty well set. They'll play with a bunch of tight ends, and you'll have 3-4-man surfaces, and they'll pull linemen, and they'll crack on the perimeter, and from the inside out, load from the inside to the outside, so they'll create a seam right there. And they do a good job of that. And then from those splits and those formations that allow them to crack and load, then they'll run rail routes and shot plays, and so they'll run, shot play, run, take the top off, and so it's difficult to defend. I think there's teams that have certainly tried setting edges and pressuring and blitzing, and their O-line does a good job of identifying stuff and picking stuff up. And so, Matt Wells is over there. I have a lot of respect for Matt. I've coached with Matt. Matt's daughter works for us here at Baylor, and so a lot of respect and love for his family. And so it's going to be a challenge with Matt. He's good at what he does.
And what about Avery Johnson, the Wildcats quarterback who has not quite lived up to the hype that he has received through his career? The talent is still very much there.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for him. He's someone, speaking of Kylan and just the learning and going through all the things, he's done that too. And you could see he's improved with every game that he's played this year. They've improved, and it really speaks highly of Coach Klieman just to see from where they started to where they are now. The tape, when you watch the games kind of in that order, they're a much improved team. And so, there's throws, just from playing them here coming up that you wish he wasn't making. You wish he didn't see the coverage tilt, and you wish he didn't idea it and throw it right where it needs to be. But he's doing that. So he's a better thrower than you want him to be. And so he's a challenge, be a challenge for us.
And from his own head coach?
I think there was like 3 or 4 plays that Wells had on him where he maybe missed the read and we had somebody open and he didn't just pull the trigger. There was one time on a 4th down where we had a couple of guys and he didn't pull the trigger on it and pulled it down and stuff. But I thought getting him going running the football, some of it was his own doing in the fact of, the first 3rd down, they blitz and they play man and they don't have a spy and he breaks it for 25. I think that really gave him some life, as well as a couple of other plays. We had another 4th down play where it's a run pass option and he makes a big play in the red zone. I think those things give him a lot of confidence, a lot of spark. And, he was, I think, protective of the football, did a really good job, of not throwing it into some coverage that maybe can get rattled around in there. But and we had a couple of drops again. But, I thought he played a good game. I know there's more in Avery, though.
Now for some notes on the big uglies in front of Johnson, protecting him and opening running lanes for him and Edwards.
Yeah, I was really happy with them. I thought they played physical. I thought they communicated well. It's a pretty good front that we went against. All those guys, the ones about played really well. I thought Gus Hawkins came in and gave us some really good snaps. You can tell some of the freshman mistakes maybe he was making early in the season. He's gaining some confidence. Devin Vass came in and played 50-some snaps because J.B. Nelson couldn't go. And it gave us a great lift. And he was able to play both guard spots, which helped us get TP out a little bit. Liney's the one that, he's the Swiss Army knife. He has to play them all. I wish he didn't have to, but in a game like that, we had to play him at multiple spots. But I thought Sam and TP, I thought TP played one of his best games of the year. We've got to have that expectation of Sam and TP. But overall, I think we were more consistent. Did they whip us on some plays? You bet, but we were more consistent in the O-line.
Meanwhile, on the other side, Aranda still has not seen his defense play a complete game. Arizona State was a good showing, but the Bears did not keep the momentum going at Oklahoma State.
I really thought going into this last game that this was going to be an opportunity for us to play our best game. And just so disappointing that first half. I thought, whether it was the second half of SMU or it was the Samford game or it was the majority of the Arizona State game, you could see there's an improvement here, there's growth here. This play we didn't make, first week, and now we're making it, and now we're getting some momentum, some traction, and there's only things that players and coaches and maybe their moms would notice or care about, And so we have to be able to really kind of put 4 quarters together to get it to where we're on the other side of this. And obviously we failed, horribly to do that. And so we're right back at it again, I think whether it's the gadget plays, the double passes, these things, very similar to some of the stuff with SMU and just all of it. Like, we have to get better at that, and so we'll continue to work at it. The guys are very committed to improving, and so we need to get over the hump, and I feel like we will.
Shifting gears as we near the end of this video, Baylor is 4-12 at home against Power 4 opponents since the start of the 2022 season. This has become a real concern, at least outside of the Baylor program, such that it has to be addressed in media sessions.
This week I feel like we need to prove that we can play good at McLean and that we can come in and defend our stadium and just put a show on for our fans.
Has that been frustrating a little bit? I mean, because you've actually done better on the road last couple weeks.
Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't necessarily call it frustrating because it is a good thing that we're dominating on the road,
Right.
But I feel like it should be an emphasis that we come in and we destroy whoever comes in McLean. We should never lose here.
That's definitely been a point of emphasis this week. Really just bringing that energy, really just back to McLean. That's the main thing. We're handling our business on the road, but it's about executing, being physical, and just taking care of business at home, because that's the main thing. That's what fans want to see. This is our home territory. Fans want to come home and be like, oh yeah, it's Baylor. We're gonna get a win. You know what I'm saying? So that's the main focus, just getting taking it game by game, but specifically getting this dub at home.
A key part of defending McLean will be the ability to finish, which Dave Aranda has harped on this week, and you will hear more about in his final words.
We need to, yeah. I mean, that's something that we talk about quite a bit, and there is something too when you can hold the ball for 4 or 5 minutes and just continue to move the ball down the field, matriculate it that way, and control the clock, and then kind of enforce your will. There's a whole lot of things that go into that, because at that point everyone's tired, everybody's hot, everybody's sore, everybody's hurting. Everybody wants, the clock to be this certain way, and to kind of continue to give it and give it up for the team says a lot. And so we've been fighting to get it. Now that we got it, we need that to be us all the time.
And the final keys for Coach Klieman?
Well, know why we were successful. That's the first thing is, it's not like some magic potion that all of a sudden we played better. It was a combination of our preparation, combination of practices that we had with great energy. Like I told you, we went against offense versus defense all through the bye week, and then even on Tuesday and Wednesday. And if a play was made on either side of the ball, there was a celebration. And we needed that energy. Now, you don't ever want to get a penalty, and we got a sideline warning, but I was going to accept it on Saturday because we had not played with that energy. We should all the time, and we didn't. And so how do we make sure that that's not a one-off? And that's going to be the message today when we see the guys is notice why we were successful. We played more physical. We played with more energy. We had better week of practice, better week of preparation. Now you're going to go on the road and try to do this. We had a great crowd and sell out again. Thanks, K-State Nation, for continuing to support these guys. There's reasons to do it at home. Now you got to go on the road where it's going to be whatever the 74 of us that go on the road as players to make sure that they bring the juice together.
Enjoy Week 6, everybody. Join Sikkim 365 Premium on a $1 for 1 month trial to read our experts' notes and insights. Know about high school commits, off-season transfers, coaching staff changes, and so much more before the rest. Also, download the Sikkim 365 app on your iPhone today to get instant notifications of breaking news, read up on the latest inside info, easily interact with other Baylor fans on our forums, and get alerts for anything published by your favorite staff members.